Welcome back. Let's work another HSI VOR practice problem to help us prepare for our instrument written exam. Tiny Jamin, put him over here in the corner. Okay, so here's the problem we have today. It's the same one as the last one in the sense that we're basically trying to figure out which one of these airships we are. So let's make this a little more difficult and let's just remove all the answers so we can actually finish this problem from beginning to end. So now we have the blank chart and we have our HSI that we're showing in our cockpit. So as we did in the last one, the very first thing we want to do is identify what radial we have tuned up with our OBS. And we can see again, the pointer of this arrow is right on top of the south heading. So we have a 180 radial dialed in. So let's go ahead and put that on the chart. All right, here we have our 180 radial coming away from the VOR, as radials do, because remember, radials radiate away from the VOR. The next thing we want to do is identify if we have a to or from indication. So we can see here, these arrows are opposite of one another. So this is going to be a from indication. So we can throw that on our chart just to remind us the arrows are opposite. And it's just basically going to tell us relative to the VOR and the radial, we are away from the VOR. So we're on this side, and so none of our answers are going to be on this side. That might have been a little confusing. Let me say that again. So if we have the 180 radial dialed in and we had a to indication, we'd be flying from somewhere up here to the VOR. We're already past the VOR, so that's why we're getting the from indication. So hopefully that made a little more sense. All right, the last part is we're going to place our plane on here, and this is where this problem get a little bit tricky, and you'll see why really quickly. So here's our airplane. This is us. Our heading doesn't really matter for the sake of where we are. It's just where are we? Are we on this side or are we on this side? Well, this problem can trip you up a little bit in a way because of some reverse sensing is a way you can think about it, and I'll just kind of talk through this. So when I look at the HSI here, it looks like, the radial is to the left of us because of this line. So you would think, oh, maybe I should be on this side. And the radial is to the left of us. So I would have to fly to the left to get to the 180 radial. Well, that would be incorrect. And the reason is because we need to flip everything 180 here because we are actually dialed in southbound. So you got to remember that this left or right is relative to the radial you have dialed in and, where you are, where the VOR is. So in this case, if we were to actually think of this the other way, this might make it easier. So now you can see our radial is lined up with our HSI. We can see we actually need to fly to the right. So that would put our airplane somewhere right here. We can also orient the airplane directionally to where our heading is. And so that would be direct southbound heading. So I would think that the answer would have one of these chip things located right about here. But before we do that, I want to hop over to another simulator just to kind of point out some of the stuff that we just discussed. So here's a really great VOR simulator that you can find online if you just Google VOR simulator, and I have the same problem drawn up. So just to orient ourselves, we have the 180 radial dialed in. We can see we have a needle that's to the left, and we have a from indication. So this is the same problem that we've been looking at. Also, we have the heading of the airplane pointed due south. So we can see our airplanes right here. This is going to be the radial that we have dialed in. And we can see if we were on this side, we would flip to the to sign. We were on this side, flip to the from side. And the needle stays pegged to the left as it should. Is it because the plane's pointing in a certain direction? And of course, no, the heading has no bearing on what our radial is doing. We can see we can fly the plane in complete circles right here, and the needle stays to the left no matter what. The only reason it would change is if we go to the other side. So the way I like to think about this, just to dummy check myself when I'm trying to answer these questions, is if you initially would want to put the plane on this side of the radial because it looks like we have a left needle, you got to remember, if you're in the plane and you're flying to the south, if you just turn yourself around, a left needle is pointed that direction towards the radial. So when you think of it that way, you're like, okay, everything checks, that tracks, and it's the left needle makes sense. Maybe I'm the only one that's confused by that, but sometimes you just have to go step by step to think about these things. So getting back to the problem, we can check our work. We can see our answer is 17, heading south, just to the west of the 180 radial.